So I have a quiz for you to start
A
with.
quiz. Okay.
It's more of a Facebook meme in spoken word form.
Okay.
It's a what would you call X? And then I'm going to describe something to you. This is
Okay.
via your partner. The things that you use to tie up your hair, like the little rubbery sort of things that if you had long hair and you wanted to put in a ponytail, what would you call that?
A hair tie.
Okay, yep. I can get on board with hair tie.
What would you call it?
I'd probably call it a hair tie or a hair lackey. Like
A
hair
lackey?
elastic. Yeah, lackey, short for elastic.
Huh. Okay.
Number 2. There are only 3 of these, by the way. But number 2, a can of like Coke or Pepsi or Mountain Dew, or a can of something fizzy and non-alcoholic.
A soda.
A soda, okay. I'm going with soft drink or softy on that one.
Okay. Yeah. I've soft drinks common. I've never heard anyone call it a softie before.
So far we've had lackey and softy, so bit of a theme for Australian English here, I think.
Uh-huh.
And the third and final one, and this one I did not realise was quite different in North America when I saw your partner's response. When you're doing your shopping and you're pushing that thing around with all your shopping in it.
Yeah, her and I definitely have different words for this. She's from the South. She calls it a buggy, but I call it a shopping cart.
Okay. I can actually add a third. I would call it a shopping trolley.
A trolley.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I've actually heard that used before, so.
Trolley sounds a bit British, so maybe that's the distinction.
Yeah. In my mind, a trolley is like a... I don't know. I don't even know exactly how to describe them. Like the small trains.
Small train. Okay. Yeah.
It's not exactly a train because it doesn't have an engine pulling it, but it's like entirely self-powered commuter car.
Okay.
Like
Trolley.
what goes up and down the streets of San Francisco. Are you familiar with those?
Yeah, okay. Yep.
Yeah.
A trolley. Yeah. I can imagine like proper English people calling them a trolley, but I don't think they would ever be called that over here.
What would you call them?
The things in San Francisco.
Yeah.
A tram, I guess.
A tram. Okay.
There's one city in Australia that's full of them, and they're called trams. Yeah, I don't think there's any other word for it.
We have one in Kansas City. We call it a streetcar.
Streetcar.
Which is a weird name because all cars go on the street, but it's actually tracks.
Yeah. Sounds like a good title for a movie.
Streetcar?
Yep.
I think it is a streetcar named Desire.
Yeah,
I think
that's the one. Yep. And there's no shortened form of trolley, I guess. It's pretty much short enough as it is.
Right.
Yep.
All right. You guys just have weird words for everything.
Speak for yourselves. Yeah, I went camping on the weekend, and I've come back, and somewhere I've picked up bed bugs, I'm pretty sure. It's either fleas or bed bugs. I'm kind of hoping it's fleas because they're a bit easy to get rid of.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Picked up bed bugs in the wild, huh?
In the wild. Well, my guess it's not in the wild, and the last person that used my swag somehow left them in there. But the thing hasn't been used for, I think, at least a year. And according to my research, like a bed bug can last only like 6 months or so without a feed. So, yeah, it's a bit up in the air where they've come from. But, yeah, so if you hear, like, scratching in the background, it's just me scratching at my legs, covered in bed bug bites. Hopefully it doesn't come through.
That's miserable.
Yeah, well, the worst part of it is just how hard they are to get rid of once they're fully in. So I spent the morning boiling my bed sheets. I figure they're not going to survive that. I don't know if the washing machine gets hot enough. I think it does. But I'm also not sure if the temperature on the machine's in Fahrenheit or Celsius. So I just played the safe card and boiled them all.
Do they actually get into the mattress as well? Like, what would you do about that?
Yeah, the mattress is a tricky one. Hoping they didn't get that far in, but they normally look for like a little nook or a cranny to get in to sleep in for the daytime until its victim comes back for the nighttime.
Just time for a new bed.
Yeah, maybe. I really prefer not to, though.
Yeah. So, did I tell you about a year ago that I got corrective surgery for my eyes?
Yeah, for sure.
I got more corrective surgery.
More?
More.
I didn't know it was a case of, like, more was better.
Well, I don't think that's usually the case. But it turned out that the first time they did the surgery, they actually overcorrected my vision.
Ooh.
And made it, like, bad the opposite direction. So I was previously nearsighted, and I had become farsighted. And so they do, like, touch-ups and corrections for free. So I went back in last weekend to get my eyes fixed again. And
my mental image of what happened the first time was a little laser like burnt off a little bit of your eye. So if they went too far, how do they fix that back up?
Well, I guess it's less about how much is removed and more about how they shape it.
Ah, so it's more of a shaping
thing. So they
thing.
can kind of reshape it a different way, yeah.
Okay.
So then I've actually had 2 different surgeries. The first time, they used kind of a newer procedure called Smile, and it took a laser and basically destroyed a lower layer of my eye. And they cut a little slit in my eye and used like a hook to pull out the layer that they had disintegrated.
Mm-hmm.
But this time, the correction was minor enough that they couldn't use the newer procedure. So I had classic LASIK, which is just like they peel that top layer off your eye and then they laser it and then they put the layer back on instead.
Lovely.
And of the 2, now that I've experienced both and I can give a proper review,
because that's what people are here for.
That's right. LASIK hurts more during the surgery.
Okay.
I think it might have actually been like they didn't put as many numbing drops in, because my first surgery is like, oh, there's a little bit of pressure on my eye. It's like barely feel anything. But the second time, I'm like, I can feel them cutting into my eye right now, and it was very uncomfortable.
Yeah. Wow.
But alternatively, by the next day, I completely felt normal again. Like, I haven't had any discomfort or anything. And the Smile procedure took a few days before I started feeling comfortable.
So you didn't have the whole week of wearing eye patches and being led around like a blind person?
No, I can see. I do wear eye patch at night, so I don't accidentally rub my eye and move that layer around before it heals. But, yeah. It's still healing up a little bit. Things are still a little, like, halo effect around bright objects. But hopefully by the month mark or so, all of that should be going away.
The halo effect might be a good thing.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Why would you say that?
I don't know. It might just be a look that you go for. I'm pretty sure there's some like Instagram filters you can put on that put halo effects on things.
I have like a permanent Instagram filter in my eye.
Right.
It's a little like, if it's an Instagram filter, they've turned up the intensity too much.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I think that's my last time. If my vision's not good again, I'm probably just gonna like to have glasses and not do the surgery again.
Really? So, if you had to do it over from scratch, or if it just went bad again?
Like, if it still wasn't corrected to a point that I was comfortable, I would get glasses to fix it the rest of the way.
Yeah.
Versus the surgery. I know there's a ton of success stories. Even my mom had LASIK 20 years ago and still has relatively perfect vision.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But with my personal experience and seeing that correcting can still lead to it being off by quite a bit, at this point, I'd be worried about going in and trying to correct it a few steps and actually doing more harm than good at this point. So
yeah, I mean, how much eye goo do you have left to be able to shape until they get down to like the important stuff or whatever's under the goo?
Yeah, they do like a cartography map kind of your eye to see if there's enough left to actually do the surgery every time. So, but like I only had the correction done in one eye, even though my right eye is also like not 20/20. It was close enough to 20/20. They're like, well, we can try to fix this and we'll aim for 20/15 vision when it's done. But as you can tell, like from my left eye was 20/40 after the surgery. So like you can tell it's not exactly a exact science. I'm like, well, I don't want to make it worse than it is, so we'll just do one eye.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to have a real story about laser eye surgery, because I was under the impression that you're basically at like a 99% success rate. You know, you go in, you get perfect vision, you come out.
Right. And that's still kind of my impression overall of surgery. Like, I've had a few struggles with it, but I don't want to downplay how bad my vision was before. I couldn't see anything. And the fact that I've been able to go a year without wearing glasses, even though my vision wasn't perfect, like it's still an incredible surgery and worth doing in my mind, even if it doesn't have a perfect result.
And so what use are your Steve Jobs model glasses at this point? Are you going to take the glass out of the frames, just wear the empty frames?
Well, that'd be two arms and a nose piece.
Right, because there's nothing. Right, they're frameless, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, they're completely useless right now because they have my original extremely strong prescription in them. But if I do end up getting my eyes tested at some point in the future, and there's a couple extra notches or whatever up the scale that glasses can give me, I probably will get them updated to that at some point.
You could turn them into non-prescription sunglasses in the meantime. Have a chat to... What's the company? Was it Luna? Or is that the model of the glasses?
Yeah, that was the brand of the frames.
Luna's a brand, okay.
And yeah, that was the brand that I was told was pronounced Lenore.
Oh, that's right, Lenore.
Yeah.
But it's not?
Well, it's a German company, and you were in Germany at the time. You're like, I'll go around and ask people how they pronounce it. And you said everyone said Lunar, so...
That's right. That's taking me back.
So I don't know. I think it was probably just a hipster glasses frame sales guys trying to make up fancy names for everything.
All right. Any other pre-show topics?
No, I don't think so.
No animal infestations in your house?
No, luckily not yet.
Not yet.
just 4 children. That's almost an infestation in itself.
It practically is. Good morning.
Good morning.
There is a rumor that iOS 14 is going to support all of the same iPhones as iOS 13, which includes the iPhone SE. So what has been rumored is that iOS 14 is going to be just a bug release sort of release, bug fix release, kind of like how iOS 12 was a bit of a bug fix release, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, focused on speed and battery life and those sorts of things. And actually brought some pretty old devices back to like a usable level of performance as well, which was nice. But yeah, iOS 14 doing the same thing again so soon. Kind of needs it since iOS 13 is still a bit of a shitstorm. I don't know if we swear on this podcast. Really 53 shows in. I don't know if we swear or not.
I think the odd swear word's been thrown in here and there in the last couple of years.
All right. It's a bit of a poo fight, iOS 13. So yeah, iOS 14 on all... So that'll be all the A8 and above devices. No, A9 and above devices. All the A8s will be dropped.
Right. Man, I cannot believe that the iPhone SE has been holding on for this long. It seems that Apple doesn't share some of the same concerns the development community does, and just how hard it is to design for a screen that small. Which I guess is fair. Like, we'll suck it up and make your apps good because we supported devices for a long time. And that's not something to complain about, especially because of all of the small screen lovers out there, that this phone is basically going to be your last chance to have a phone that size, probably ever, from Apple.
But it's not just the small screen lovers. It's also for people with vision impairments who operate in like the zoomed in mode on the bigger phones. So it's as if the UI has to fit a small screen size. And yeah, it's being displayed at, I don't know what magnification that is, but to make it more readable for those people. So even if the SE was dropped, I don't think developers can just ignore that sometimes the UI is going to be really big, or you're not going to be able to fit much on the screen.
That's fair. And maybe the SE is kind of a way of Apple keeping screens that size in the forefront of developers' minds. I mean, I'm far from an iPhone app developer, but for the few apps I've made, I don't think that Apple's ever made it apparent, at least in an obvious way, that you can design your interfaces around the accessibility mode. I'm sure there's ways to optimize for accessibility mode, and I'm just such a noob at it that it's above my head. But I definitely had to make sure I was targeting the iPod Touch and iPhone SE screen size, and 5S even at the time. So maybe even just doing that is kind of a way of putting the bare minimum into making sure your application's accessible.
It's definitely the bare minimum as well, just judging on changes that have come to Apple's own apps in the last few years. They tend to have like more padding and bigger borders, bigger margins, or bigger text, obviously. Seen heaps of that. But every app redesign that's come in the last few years has not been optimal for a small screen size. It's kind of fit less on the screen,
right?
Which would be fine on a biggish phone. Although some people would argue not that even. But yeah, on the small screen size, it's fitting even less. Almost to the point where it looks comical for some apps. Like if they had like album artwork, it's kind of squished into this tiny little box.
Right. Well, I definitely think that iOS 14 needs to be a performance update. And I don't actually think there's very many things people have been clamoring for on the software side. It seems like iOS 13 gave a lot of people pretty much everything they've been asking for over the years. And so I think it's a good time to take another step back and do some optimization.
The only thing that comes to mind is the call UI. People just hate the call UI. This is on one of our topics a few shows ago.
Right.
And in the theme of just addressing all the user requests, yeah. I think we had a bet on it, did we? That the core UI would be changed? We've placed a few bets in the last few months, and I don't really remember any of them. Yeah, but that might have been one of them.
And I think I was on the side of it wouldn't.
Okay. Well, if the volume heads-up display can be changed, then anything can be changed.
Yeah, just give them another 10 years and they'll get around to that.
But you're right, the actual number of changes that people are asking for, it seems to be quite small.
Right. Yeah.
And if the update threads, since we had a whole host of updates come out yesterday, if they're anything to go by, people just want bug fixes, because if commenters are to believe, practically every function on the iPhone is broken in one way or another.
Yeah, that's how it reads in the comment sections.
It's the same every update, though. Is X niche use case bug fixed in this release? It's been X number of years, and I still put up with it every day. But we'll get to that on that topic.
Okay.
So the iPad Air 2 would be dropped then, but the iPhone SE would get iOS 14. And the 4th gen iPad mini would be dropped as well.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Those are all old devices now.
Yeah. Just quickly on the performance of... Sorry?
Oh, I was going to say, I'm about to force my mom to upgrade her iPad again. She has a 4th Gen Mini.
4th Gen Mini. Okay, yep.
Yep, she loves it.
Yep. My mum loves her iPad too.
Yeah?
She has, I think, just like the iPad 2018.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my mom actually uses her iPad Mini for like most of her at-home computing needs.
Mm-hmm.
And I've tried to convince her over the years. She's had the Minis since the iPad 2 came, or the Mini 2 came out. And I've tried to convince her over the years to upgrade to a bigger screen size, and she's adamant that she loves the tiny iPad and doesn't want it any bigger. She even has one of those really tiny keyboard cases for it. I don't know how you can type on that.
Yeah. The keyboards for the 9 inches are small enough. I can't imagine typing on the Mini, on a mini-sized keyboard.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Mums, hey? I just want to say the performance of the iPhone SE, it does seem to be kind of... The software is just starting to stretch the chip in this phone now. So much that even in the battery saving mode, the phone kind of drops out of a usable speed. I don't think... if I'm trying to use the phone, I'm not having it in battery saving mode. It's just too slow to get things done. So you can really see it's just on the cliff. So if iOS 14 is not like an optimization and a bug fix release, then the phone is really going to struggle.
Yeah, sounds like it's probably high time for either another efficiency update or for that phone to finally go away.
Oh, it doesn't have to go away. Speaking of, actually that's not on iPhone SE, that's enough of iOS 14. But onto the iPhone SE. So now we can talk about the SE for even longer. But this is a report from Bloomberg that a new low-cost iPhone will be entering production next month. Could be released in March. So we occasionally get releases from Apple in March. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's a nice surprise. Sometimes it's boring education updates. Those sorts of things. But yeah, according to Bloomberg, and actually according to a few other sources as well, like I think Ming Chi Kuo has been predicting this, and various other rumors for I don't know how many years now, like 4 years, like an iPhone SE2 / iPhone 9 could be coming out.
Right.
So
it seems like as long as there's been an iPhone SE, there's been rumors of an SE2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is pretty definite though. Like to say something's coming out in March and it's practically February already.
Right. Yeah. He seems pretty confident to be saying that.
Unless we have another AirPower situation when it just gets cut last minute.
I think the SE niche is due for an update. Hopefully that niche is people willing to lose a couple extra features in exchange for a phone that's close to half the price, and the SE niche wasn't actually just people who really liked the smaller screen size, because that doesn't sound like what we're going to be getting in this phone, at least not as small as the current SE.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be an iPhone 8 size thing, or the small one, not the 8 Plus.
Right.
But yeah, the success on this depends on what the niche actually is, because the niche for me, and like from all the Twitter people I follow, the niche is that it's a small screen size, and that's the draw. And I guess a little bit also that it's an iPhone 5 form factor, which some people just really like, which the iPhone SE2 is not going to be. Like I would almost place like $1,000 on that.
Oh, yeah, easily.
Yeah. Yeah, so the niche is probably just a low-cost iPhone. But there have been other low-cost iPhones in the past that didn't do very well. Like, how about the 5C? Wasn't that a low-cost iPhone that did badly?
Yeah, I don't think I don't actually know the exact numbers on the 5C. I actually remember seeing quite a few around when that was announced. But that phone never made any sense to me because it was just an iPhone 5 in a plastic case. So if you wanted a 5C, you'd be better off getting like a used iPhone 5 because you get the exact same performance in a nicer case in my mind.
And performance-wise, it didn't take very long for that just to become dog slow. That was the last of the 30-bit, 32-bit processors. And the 5S
the 5C
really
had a pretty short life.
Yeah, it was very short.
So,
but it was the low-cost option at the time. And then the SE became the low-cost option. But the SE just hung around. It was sold by Apple up until 2018 when I think they had a run on some.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And even today, I see an SE every day, obviously, since it's my phone. But I see them everywhere as well.
Sure. To be fair, though, the form factor of the regular sized iPhone 8, I've always found very comfortable in the hand. I think it's a really good size. I remember when this design was first announced, the iPhone 6, and I camped out overnight to get my 6 Plus from an AT&T store.
Mm-hmm.
I was so excited about it, and it was a huge jump going from like 5S to a 6 Plus. Like that felt like two different worlds, and I was over the moon with it. Until the first time I held someone's iPhone 6, like a month later, I'm like, oh no, I've made a huge mistake. This is the most comfortable phone I've ever held.
Oh, great. I've made a huge mistake meme.
I mean, and it's a mistake that I then repeated continuously because I was willing to trade having a bigger phone for those extra features. But it did stick with me, clearly, because I finally went with an iPhone 11 Pro instead of the Max this year. So I learned my lesson. Just took some time.
I don't think I ever decided on whether the non-Plus or the Plus form factor of those generations suited me best. I kind of just bought one year and a different one the next. I liked them both equally. I found them both equally unwieldy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The most comfortable version or variant I ever had was, I think, the 6S standard with the battery case because it had the camelback.
Oh,
which,
right.
Turned it into a very ergonomic thing to hold.
Huh.
But then I think after that I went 7 Plus. Yeah, so I never really settled on one. Now I've ended it back on the smallest one you can get, basically. Although I did carry around an iPad Pro 11-inch as my daily for like 3 months, so I'm probably not one to look at for any real advice on this topic.
When it comes time that your SE isn't cutting it anymore, either because you've dropped it in too many cups of coffee or smashed the screen too much, do you think you'd be reaching for an SE2, or do you think you'd at that point probably decide just to go all out and upgrade further than that?
That's a very good question. I don't think I would go for an SE2.
Really?
No. I think I'd probably try and get a Face ID device, really.
Right.
Yeah. It's hard to say not knowing what the figure's going to be. According to Ming Chi Kuo, the starting price for the SE2 / iPhone 9, which it might be called, would be $399. And for that sort of price, I'm pretty sure I could get a second-hand iPhone 10 or even 10s.
Sure.
So that would probably be the way to go. If I was buying a phone from a carrier and it was a new phone and I was paying it out over a contract or whatever, then I'd probably go for like a cheaper option. But typically I just buy phones on the second-hand market.
Right.
And I think a Face ID device could probably be had for that amount of money soon, if not already.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you can find something like that by now. Face ID's been out for 3 years now, so it would almost feel like stepping back into the dark ages at this point to get a Touch ID device. I don't know how.
Maybe I'll just buy another SE1 because they can be had for like $80.
Okay, let's assume that your phone's become unusable, not because you've destroyed it, but because the operating system is just so slow or is not being supported anymore or any other reason. Just go back to carrying your iPad everywhere.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe by then there's been some other evolution in all the hurdles I had to jump when I only had the iPad. Maybe by then the watch would be standalone, and
oh yeah,
maybe take over some of the phone's functions.
Yeah, if the watch was fully standalone, I think that would be enough for a lot of people. At least people that are in the market for just a phone.
Yeah. I can think of a few other problems, like WhatsApp doesn't work on an iPad, and it wouldn't work on a standalone watch, I'd assume. And WhatsApp is like up there with iMessage for requirements for a lot of people.
Sure. And I don't think it's that it couldn't work. I mean, we can get iMessage to work fine on a watch, and I think if Facebook wanted to put the time into making an Apple Watch WhatsApp app, they could. You just have the problem of having to dictate all your messages or scribble type them.
Yeah. News from not too long ago was that Facebook was unifying the back end of Instagram, WhatsApp, and Messenger. If that came about, then that would probably solve the problems. If you could just send someone a WhatsApp message from, I was going to say Instagram, but that's like a blown up iPhone app on the iPad, so Messenger.
Yeah, that would work great. Because the Messenger app's actually very nice on the Apple Watch. It's one of the nicer Apple Watch apps in terms of utilizing all the functionality.
Yeah, it's surprising, isn't it?
So, yeah.
I did see a small hint that the Apple Watch might be going standalone actually during the week.
Really?
Yeah, just my own observation. This could be nothing, but it could be something. So
okay.
Previously when you what was it? Some function on the watch that you like it was tappable, but you couldn't actually do it on the watch. The message for it, I'm pretty sure I remember this like back from Series 0 was continue on your iPhone. Do you remember that from any particular function or action?
Continue on your iPhone. A lot of Siri queries prompted me to do that.
Yeah, okay, that might have been one of them. But anyway, I think I was tapping on messages, and yeah, that's right. I tapped on a link to an iCloud photo album, and it didn't say continue on your iPhone. It said continue on your iOS device. So there's a little change in language there, which might hint to either pairing a watch and an iPad, or just the complete untethering of the Apple Watch.
Man, yeah, even if you could just pair the Apple Watch to like an iPod Touch, that would be enough for a lot of people.
Yeah, just something super cheap, so that you could buy a few more watches, like one for your kids or one for each kid.
Yeah, my kids all have the iPod Touches, and they all want. I mean, they all wanted smartwatches, and they got like the cheap $30 Chinese smartwatches or whatever to play with. But
and now Huawei's tracking their location everywhere they go.
Yeah. No, it doesn't have like any tracking stuff. It's just like some kids games on it or something.
You think it doesn't have any tracking stuff?
Yeah.
Look at me spreading the FUD about Chinese government tracking.
But anyway, yeah, if it was possible to get them like a cheap used Series 1 Apple Watch or something, pick up a couple of those for, I don't know what they sell for now, maybe $50 or something.
Mm-hmm.
They would love that. They'd be over the moon about having an Apple Watch. So, but right now, even if I wanted to get something like that for them, there's no way to set it up without having them all on my phone.
And doesn't only one Apple Watch stay active, like paired to the phone at a time?
I'm not super familiar with how the functionality works. I know you can have multiple Apple Watches paired to a phone at a time. I've done that before. Like before I sent you yours, I had it paired to my phone alongside my other Apple Watch, and it was just sitting in a charging cradle as like a little clock.
Okay. So they would operate simultaneously. You wouldn't have to say like, I'm wearing this one now.
Yeah, I think it would just like dynamically switch to everyone you're wearing would start getting the notifications.
Okay. Yeah. But if you wore both at the same time, would both receive notifications?
I don't know. Never tried that out.
Because like sometimes I've got my left arm free, so I can check on that. But sometimes I might want to use my other wrist.
Yeah, that's the only legitimate reason to own 2 Apple Watches.
Yeah, yeah. Or a day watch, night watch.
Right, yeah. I've tried to keep my eye open. I'm sure they'd be insanely expensive and never worth purchasing, but just to see on the secondhand market if anyone has ever tried to like sell off an old Series 0 edition watch, and I've never seen one come up for sale.
It's because no one ever bought one.
Yeah, the only people that had them were the celebrities that Apple just gave them to.
Yeah. I bet they're under lock and key somewhere.
I mean,
if someone was selling one, they'd have to be very careful about advertising it, because you wouldn't want to just stick it on the online classifieds and then have some random turn up at your house.
You'd almost be better taking it to like a jeweler or something, because it's literally like worth its weight in gold. So
right,
it's worth more as the material than anything else at this point.
I wonder how much you would get back from it if you send it to Apple's recycling program.
Oh man, I wonder if they'd even take those back.
Look, you've got a scratch on the screen, so we're valuing it at $0. Sorry.
I'm not super familiar with the value of precious metals, but my understanding at the time was the watch prices were pretty insane, but given the fact that they were like solid gold, like it wasn't too far out of the park for what they're actually worth just for the precious metals.
Okay. So they might not have been that dumb a buy.
$1,000 markup.
At all.
Right.
I mean, if the value of gold goes up enough, maybe it was even an investment. It might have been a wiser move to buy the 24-karat watch than the stainless steel one, because you can actually sell it for more in the future.
But who would buy it?
Oh, it's someone that just wanted the gold.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah. Someone who's just going to take it apart and melt it down, and yeah. So if you keep it for extra long, you get the added value of it being like I bet it'd be an extremely rare Apple product to own in the future. Like, there might be some collectors who'd be way into the first Apple Watch that's like only sold a few dozen or whatever they actually ended up selling.
That's it. I'm going to set up a search alert for Apple Watch Edition unboxed on eBay.
$10,000.
At least.
Yeah.
So the iPad seems to have turned 10 since we last spoke.
Yeah, that's right.
The beloved iPad. I absolutely love the iPad. My iPad. It is an absolutely indispensable device.
I've sold off my laptops in favor of just using my laptop as my at-home commuting device for anything that doesn't require a big desktop. So
your iPad,
definitely all in. Yeah. What did I say?
Your laptop. You sold off your laptops to use your laptop.
Oh. Yeah. So, yeah, my iPad Pro has replaced my laptops for 99% of the things I do. That's not work-related, at least.
Yeah, exactly. So your current setup is iPad Pro, Mac Pro, and an iMac?
Yeah, as far as my Apple devices, I've got a PC tower that I built a couple years ago. That I actually do most of my work on. But most of the time I'm on an Apple device.
I'll edit that part out of the show. Don't worry. Only kidding.
So,
so the actual article that was posted was from Input Mag, and was an interview of two people who are actually now a married couple that were part of the iPad team, which, I mean, the biggest revelation to me reading this is that the iPad team was tiny. It wasn't many people. It wasn't like this massive department within Apple that was working on it. But
right.
It seems like even up until not that recent, until fairly recently, like within a few years, it was still basically a small team within Apple that was working on it. And they describe themselves as a startup within a startup. So an iPad startup within an iPhone startup.
Right. Which is I guess, a little bit backwards to how I always heard it. Because my understanding of the birth of the iPad and the iPhone was that the iPhone really came out of work done on an early iPad concept. So, and I think they kind of touch on that. They have a couple code names for their projects here that I've lost track of. K48, I think, was the iPad. But before that, it was, let me see, Q79 was the initial, like, we need a touchscreen computer startup that eventually led into the technology that was used for iPhone and then eventually brought back into the iPad.
Yeah.
So,
Imran Chowdhury, if that's how you pronounce it, seemed to be really quite close with Steve and was involved with a lot of projects, including iPhone, iPad. What else? Watch, AirPods, HomePod, basically everything.
Yeah, that's what it made it sound like. It kind of read a little weird to me, and it makes me wonder how much this article was like a 10th anniversary of the iPad article, and how much is an advertisement for their new company they're starting up. He's like, yeah, I was close with Steve, and also I directly was responsible for the iPhone, iPad, iPod, Watch, AirPods, HomePod.
Basically everything successful that Apple's done, that was me.
Right.
I didn't read it too much as an ad because there was no real pushing of what they're doing now. In fact, I'm not even clear what they do except that their current company is called Humane.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. Just, I guess reading it in my mind is like, man, if you had your hand in that many things, I really thought I would have heard your name before now.
That's true, yeah. His title was Director of Design on the Human Interface team. So Director of Design.
Right.
But Apple doesn't often make non-C-level execs like that well known, especially in the past. A little bit more so now.
Yeah, that's right. They have definitely gotten a lot better about bringing more people onto the stage in the last few keynotes to talk about their projects.
Yeah. So I think it's probably fair to say that he could have well have been involved in everything, and we wouldn't have heard his name despite all that.
Sure.
And the other person, his partner being Bethany Bongiorno, who was the software engineering director who joined Apple in 2008. So not quite the legacy, but still heavily involved in the iPhone and the iPad.
Right. Yeah. So it's interesting to me. I guess not surprising. This will probably continue to happen, but even 10 years later, just the stories that still seem to slowly trickle out about these product designs. I guess I wouldn't expect it any other way, but it's just fun to keep learning more about the background of some of these. So,
yeah.
Oh, I was thinking specifically they had a question about working on the App Store and how they're going to get other companies enthusiastic about and building apps. And Steve was like actually making phone calls, like I think it said like Time Magazine or something like that, or New York Times. And it's like, you have to make an app because this is the future and you're going to be left behind if you don't do this. Yeah. That's really how they got their first people in the App Store.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some interesting quotes about the first game that they made because developers, didn't. I don't know if they didn't know what to do, but the whole lack of joystick and buttons and having an accelerometer in there, and they wanted to show like this is how you make games in the future. You use the touchscreen, you use the accelerometer, and even the quote that the accelerometer was only put in there for photo orientation to begin with. That was fairly interesting. Like, did they not have any bigger plans than that for the accelerometer?
Yeah, that's probably not a huge piece of technology, but it'd be pretty big to add an actual physical hardware antenna, or I don't even know what an accelerometer is. A little sensor. To add an actual physical hardware sensor for one little UI aspect. It'll be almost like adding an ultra-wideband antenna just so whoever you're pointing at shows up first in your share sheet.
Yep. That's funny. I've never I've never looked up what an accelerometer actually is, and this is almost certainly false, but in my head, this is the picture of what I have. Mm-hmm. This is going to be comically bad. Is like a little ball bearing of some sort, like minuscule, contained in like a little, well, I don't enclosure with sensors in it to sense where the ball bearing has rolled to.
That is exactly how I've always pictured it as well.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, the chance that that's correct has got to be zero.
I mean, I'm probably even a step worse when people say they put a gyroscope in a device. I actually imagine a tiny little spinning gyroscope inside of.
Right. I'm picturing like a full blown compass contraption in there. Like.
Right.
A few other interesting tidbits from the article that I found was that Steve Jobs really wanted to be able to read his email on the toilet. I was very specific about that. On the toilet, needs to read his email.
Right.
And also the few bits about photos. And they really thought the iPad would be set up as like a display, as like a, people have these digital photo frames set up.
Right, yeah, I used to have the photo frame button right on the lock screen.
Right. So when the iPad wasn't in use, you would just hit that and it would go into photo frame mode. And as part of that, they thought, well, how are people going to get photos on here? And so the whole camera connection kit and photos import was like a last-minute scramble so that people had a way of getting photos onto the iPad to then use this photo display mode. And they thought that would be a huge use case for the iPad, and it turned out not many people used it.
Yeah, it's a bit of work to configure. I think even by the time... Like, there definitely was a time in the early to mid-2000s where those digital photo frames were everywhere, and people had scrolling slideshows of all their family photos. But by the end of... by the 2010 and on, those really started to lose popularity anyway. So... to have to pick your iPad up off I don't know, like your fireplace mantle or something to start using it when you're done using it, instead of sitting on your coffee table, getting back up and probably plugging it in and setting it up on the mantle and hitting photo frame mode, that doesn't seem like something that I would do, at least.
Yeah, it was something that was getting in the way of using the iPad, kind of. You wouldn't just... Like, every time you put it down, are you thinking, am I going to be picking this up again in 5 minutes, or am I going to be picking it up in 2 hours?
Right.
Like, it's a decision you had to make when you stopped using your iPad, which, I don't know, just didn't make sense. And it's not like you think, oh, I'm leaving the house for 2 hours now. I'll put it in photo frame mode. Well, I'm going to be home to see it. So.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, it's very much, I don't know, in my mind, a digital photo frame is so... on the opposite end of a spectrum from an iPad, because digital photo frame is something you'd probably something you really want to set up and then never have to interact with again, and it's always updating, and it's just there. And the iPad is the complete opposite, something you always want to have your hands on and interact with, and trying to shoehorn them together doesn't really work.
Digital photo frames, just while we're talking about them, they're such pieces of garbage. Maybe I've just never used a good one, but they're like 72 ppi. They've got some user interface that is navigated by some undecipherable buttons, and then when they lose power, they lose all their settings, and you have to plug in a USB to them. They don't just sync with anything. Yeah, there's my mini rant about digital photo frames. Complete pieces of garbage.
I think they're a product of their time. I'm sure if someone wanted to make a really nice one today, they could, and it'd look really good. Maybe have an OLED display or something like that.
There is one contender on the market for this, and that's the Samsung TV, which has a photo frame mode. The
really?
border of the TV actually kind of looks like a frame, like a photo frame. And there's some other... It has either a non-glare surface or a matte surface or something like that, which gives the sense that it's not an electronic display, or at least in daylight. Probably couldn't get around it at night because it would just be so bright.
Right.
But yeah, Samsung's trying. I saw them advertised fairly heavily last year.
The Frame TV, customizable art TV.
That's it, the art TV, yeah.
Oh, man, that looks really cool.
It does.
I mean, I have my Apple TV screensavers set up to pull from my shared iCloud albums. So in that way, it's kind of still a digital photo frame.
Yep.
So, and that works really well for me.
You just have to leave your TV on all the time.
Right. Well, the TV shuts off, I don't know, after 10 or 15 minutes of not being used. So it goes into photo frame mode, and there's like 10 or 15 minutes of photos, and then it shuts off. So
Okay.
You just got to be careful what photos you're pulling into your TV.
Oh, why? What sort of photos are in your photo library, David?
Nothing at all that would be inappropriate to display in the middle of my living room with children.
That's good to hear. So what's the future of the iPad?
I think we're just starting to see it. I think iPad's kind of had a slow start, and they've hinted at this in this article as well, that the iPad is a product that people buy and then figure out how they're going to use it in their lives. But I think with the introduction of iPad OS, we're really going to start seeing it really start to eclipse like average laptop use. Because even for me, iPad already does almost everything I need a laptop to do. So I think the more Apple leans into that and opens up the iPad and markets it that way, I think that they could really be the new MacBook. I don't think it replaces the MacBook Pro necessarily, but for people who just need an entry-level laptop, I think that's a strong contender already and will only continue to grow that way.
Yeah, a few minor, well, probably major improvements, which could really push it to being the real Mac replacement. It's better mouse support, better external screen support. I think I've harped on about that a few shows ago.
Mm-hmm.
And what was my third one? Oh, and an even better Safari, because I still find that Safari is just not as good as on the desktop, even though it's supposed to be desktop Safari now.
Right. It is markedly better, though, in iOS 13. It's actually bearable to use Safari on the iPad. It's actually kind of miserable pre-iPad OS just because it's loading like the iPhone website on a huge screen.
Yeah. That was always horrible. And then sometimes the request desktop mode wouldn't work for some sites because they were like hard-coded.
Right. Yeah, like getting the device type or something somewhere. And probably the browser version is like they see it's mobile Safari, so they force mobile no matter what.
I rarely have those issues now, though. There's only a few things I do where I don't know what the dynamic is, but like some buttons which maybe they expect a hover before a click, and so you end up having to click on them twice to action them on the iPad Safari. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, hover is still a hard egg to crack on a touchscreen device.
Especially when you're using a mouse, which I occasionally do, and then having to click on things twice to get anything done. It's just like you click on it once, and you're like, oh, did it click? Didn't it click? And then you have to go and click it again. It just slows down the workflow.
Yeah, I think if Apple could just add like hover sensitivity to the Apple Pencil, that would solve a lot of problems. The screen could just tell you were hovering over it, which is, I mean, totally doable. The Samsung Note device will be able to do that forever. So,
or to the mouse cursor.
Right. Yeah. More robust mouse cursor would definitely solve that problem.
Speaking of updates, Apple released an update, or tons of updates yesterday. So 13.3.1 came out for the iPhone and the iPad. Apple Watch got 6.1.2, tvOS, AudioOS, and macOS. And as far as I can tell, nothing was bricked. And no one's complaints were addressed. That's just according to the threads.
Yeah. Fairly minor updates across the board here. Although every time Apple puts the word mail anywhere in their update notes, everyone thinks that the mail app is suddenly going to be this completely fixed, and that has not been the case.
I don't have mail problems anymore since 13.1, so I guess I should consider myself lucky, but not seeing them.
The only issue I've had with my mail app is occasionally it'll act like my Gmail account can't connect. I'll get like the error text at the bottom of the mail app saying update account details or something, and it won't pull my Google emails until I like manually go into my Gmail inbox and pull to refresh, and then it connects just fine and downloads them like normal. So I don't know why it does that.
Okay. But it seems to be very buggy for a lot of people still.
Right.
Dumpster fire even, as described by the jaded SF.
I'm still not sold on the UI redesign, although it's been much nicer now that you've told me I can actually swipe on emails to flag them or delete them.
Yep. You have to know that tip. Well, it is fairly unusable without it.
Yeah, it was pretty miserable. So it's good to know.
So iPhone-wise, I didn't really have any bugs that needed to be fixed. Everything's kind of just operating as it should, I would say. If I want to make one minor complaint, it's that on the SE, the whole long press on the notifications things just comes and goes like between updates, and currently it's not there, which is a bit annoying.
Oh, really?
Yeah. As for the watch update, reminders is still completely broken. Setting or looking at reminders hasn't really worked. I think it worked in maybe 6.0.1 maybe for a bit, but since then it hasn't worked at all, despite resetting the watch completely.
What's your problem with reminders? It's just not syncing?
It takes a long time to sync, and sometimes it doesn't sync, and absolutely cannot create a new reminder.
Huh. I guess I don't use reminders on the watch. Oh, well, I was just taking a look at it because I'd never go in this app, and scrolling suddenly stopped working.
Reminders is the dumpster fire of watchOS, if mail is iOS's.
Yeah. I guess the watchOS version didn't get as much attention when the reminders redesign was done.
Right.
Yeah, I can't say I've had very many complaints. Honestly, the biggest update I would hope for on any platform right now is HomePod. I'd really like my HomePod to get better at recognizing the voices.
And there are reports on the HomePod subreddit that it is better at recognizing voices since 13.3.1.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll have to give it a shot and see then. I don't even know if mine have updated yet. I assume they did it automatically.
Yeah, they might not have checked yet. I did notice one minor change this morning when I did my daily asking Siri what the news is. It actually responded and said, what did it say? Well, it used my name in the response, which it never has before. It would always use my name in the response for a personal request, but this time just asking for the news, it used my name in return, which was interesting.
Huh. Okay. I usually use like a Google Home for getting my news in the morning, because that's what I have in the bathroom. And it does the same thing. If it recognizes my voice and knows it's me, it'll include a couple extra like personal details in my Good Morning News update. Like it'll include my drive time to work. Otherwise, it'll just give me like the weather and news. So, and that works about half the time.
About half the time it works all the time.
Right. So that's usually because I have a shower going and stuff too. Google's actually pretty good about voice recognition in a less loud environment.
I don't have like personal requests turned on my Google Home, but because I just have no need for it. But I do like Google's a couple of way it gives you the news. I like it a bit more. For example, it tells you when this news bulletin is from, whereas the HomePod just starts playing it. Google will say like bulletin from 6 a.m. this morning. And the Google Home also cycles through like, well, doesn't cycle, but it runs through a couple of different news sources in order. So it'll play like the national news and then the international news and sports news, business news, tech news, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah. I'm sure that could be set up on the HomePod too, probably with a shortcut. But by default, it doesn't do it.
Man, shortcuts have been kind of like the biggest disappointment for me. And it's mostly on me, because I know they're powerful and useful. I just can't be bothered to actually go in and try to come up with creative shortcuts to use.
Well, you probably don't even need to come up with them, because there are plenty of libraries out there full of shortcuts.
Right. And I've skimmed through them whenever they bubble up to the top of the subreddit or something, and I see a new one. And most of them just sound, I don't know, not useful to me.
That's the problem. You have to have a use case and then go and search for something to match it.
Right. So I guess I just don't use my phones enough to even have good use cases.
Maybe that can be the challenge for the next show. Try and find a shortcut which will give you as comprehensive a news report as the Google Home will give you.
Okay. I'm sure something like that already exists. Someone's put that together.
Must do. Yeah. All right. I'll take that on as well.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be easy to look into.
The little mentioned macOS also got an update. The update installed. Safari was snappier. That's about it for me.
Yeah, it seems like it will mostly update. Well, let's see. There's an update for the Pro Display XDR. Optimized gamma handling of low gray levels. That's actually a complaint that I've heard in Pro Display XDR reviews. So,
wow,
good update.
Yeah, that's good.
And then multi-stream video editing performance for HEVC and H.264 encoded 4K for the 16-inch MacBook Pro. So, 2 updates that won't affect me in any way whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Any updates for your Mac Pro 2010?
No. It's pretty much at a point where I'm happy with it, and I don't think I'll be doing any more updates in the future. The only thing I could possibly see being an issue is the 10-year-old Apple SSD dying on me at any point.
Yep.
So I might have to stick a new one in there at some point. But other than that, I'm really happy with it. It's been running Catalina perfectly. I haven't had any hiccups other than the fact that I can't update without having to go through an annoying process of putting the installer on like a USB thumb drive and then plugging it into the Mac Pro. And I actually have to... Okay, it's actually a big hassle to update the operating system because I have to switch the graphics card out to the original graphics card.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a hassle.
Yeah, because otherwise if you do like the Command R when it's booting, it goes into... I don't even know what that mode is called, where you can access the terminal and stuff before logging in.
Recovery mode?
Recovery mode, sure. But you can't see it. The screen's just blank unless you use the original graphics card.
All right, because it doesn't have the drivers or the capability of using the other one. Yeah,
the graphics card I got was supposed to be flashed to have the drivers on the card itself, so I didn't have to wait for the operating system to boot to work. And it has all the indicators of working. Like when you turn the computer on, you see the Apple logo, which if you can see anything before the desktop, it's supposed to mean that the drivers are there and working. But you can't see recovery mode. And there's not enough external pin header power cables inside the Mac Pro itself to just leave both graphics cards installed and switch, like plug my monitor in the other one. So I'm kind of out of luck. I have to take it apart and switch them out every time I need to.
Yeah, that's a minor hassle. Maybe just stick to like the first point updates. Like, actually, I was going to say like the 0.1, but macOS's third number is the point update. So like 10.15.3. You don't have like a 10.15.3.1 or anything like that. So right. I don't know.
So, yeah, I'll probably only do it when there's some major feature that I need or I encounter some big bug, which I haven't yet, so I'm not worried about. Or there's a big security vulnerability, I guess I'll have to do that. So, but I'm perfectly happy as it is.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else are people complaining about in the in the comments? Oh, iOS 12 got an update. Not really sure what that contained.
Right. Yeah, 12.4.5.
Oh, the HomePod update included Indian English? Something like that. And and then promptly the HomePod was announced in India as well. So the HomePod.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Continuing to make waves across the globe. It's coming to India.
We're due to see an update to the HomePod. If they're gonna continue it on and this isn't just a one-off, it's gonna die, then I feel like this is the year to see some new update, either a HomePod 2 or a HomePod Mini or something.
This is the year of the HomePod Mini.
I sure hope so.
Has to be.
That would be awesome. I'm moving this summer, and the house I'm moving into is a bit bigger than the house I'm in now. And I was just thinking about, oh man, I'm gonna need so many more HomePods if I'm gonna have
so many
coverage.
More. That's an expensive undertaking.
Yeah. So there's a HomePod Mini option. That would be great.
Now, how concerned are you about the lifetime of the HomePod? Because there's been some news during the week, and a good listen is the latest episode of the Vergecast, where they talk about Sonos introducing like a 10-year, I think maybe, program where devices older than 10 years don't get updates anymore.
Right.
And how concerned are you about Apple eventually dropping support for the HomePod, or stopping updating it, and then eventually, of course, say Apple Music stops streaming to the HomePod, and it basically becomes a brick at that point. I mean, there's AirPlay, but maybe even AirPlay stops being updated. Like maybe AirPlay 6 comes out, and the HomePod's AirPlay 2 never got an update to 3 or 4. And suddenly you've got, I don't know, $3,000 worth of speakers in your house, which are practically useless because there's no audio input besides what I just mentioned.
Yeah, that's the big worry. Hopefully, and this really doesn't sound like Apple, so I wouldn't expect it, but hopefully if they were to decide that they're done with the HomePod and they're not going to keep updating it, they'd maybe issue a release that unlocks like Bluetooth pairing to the HomePod, so it'll work as a standalone speaker, for the foreseeable future. But yeah, without even like an aux jack or anything. Yeah, that's the scary thing, is the Apple could at any point decide that $300 speaker is completely useless.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So maybe they introduce a recycling program where they remotely brick your device. Which is literally what Sonos did.
I wonder if that would maybe inspire like a HomePod jailbreaking community.
Yeah.
Like a custom HomePod firmware that does that pairing if Apple doesn't allow it.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to check in on that in 10 years and see what has come to pass.
I'm not worried about it being anytime soon.
No.
I'll probably have moved on or upgraded by the time that isn't a real issue.
Yeah, either we've moved on or... I mean, AirPlay 2 is practically brand new, so I can see that being at least a decade from now still being supported.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that I'll be able to use them for the foreseeable future.
So yeah, 2020, the year of the HomePod Mini.
All right, I'm taking your word on it.
All right. So this next article... Facebook blames Apple for Bezos' phone hacking, says WhatsApp can't be hacked. I'm not sure if this is a joke of an article.
It sounds like a joke.
Or is it or is it so high, so technical that it's going completely over my head? And because listen to this quote. This is what's confused me. I'm not sure if I'm too dumb to understand, or if the person who I'm quoting is not quite with it. It sounds like something on the, what they call the operated on the phone itself. It can't have been anything when the message was sent in transit, because that's end-to-end encrypted on WhatsApp. And there's another excellent quote. As sure as you can be that the technology of end-to-end encryption cannot, other than unless you have handset or you have the message at either end, cannot be hacked into. So these are quotes from Facebook's, what's his title? VP of Global Affairs and Communications, Nick Clegg.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I didn't really intro what this whole topic is, but just to say that Jeff Bezos' phone was hacked, apparently via a message that was sent to his WhatsApp from Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and a ton of stuff on Bezos' iPhone was basically exported to someone remotely. And now this article comes out. Facebook says it's not them. End-to-end encryption is why it's not them.
Yeah. First of all, just the stance of you should believe Facebook on privacy and security over Apple is funny enough.
It's hilarious.
But second of all, I'm not incredibly familiar, and it sounds like they're trying to make two arguments at once here. Like setting up a straw man and then immediately destroying it here. It's like, well, clearly he was hacked because, or they're trying to say people are saying that he was hacked because a message from the Crown Prince was intercepted and then malware was inserted into the message and then it made it Jeff Bezos, and they're saying, well, our encryption doesn't allow that, which is a separate thing entirely because it's Facebook is already controversially allows backdoor into their encryption, so that's already a false statement. But also, as far as I can tell, no one's actually implied that that's what happened either, and it was because it doesn't matter if the message is encrypted in transit if it already had the malware when they sent it in the first place. Right,
that's the crux of it, isn't it? It doesn't matter about end-to-end encryption. That doesn't really play any part in, if encryption was a way to combat viruses and malware, then we'd basically exterminate malware and viruses by encrypting everything. That's not how it works. An infected message can be encrypted.
Yeah. So. And this article doesn't make it clear at all, but it sounds like everything that was sent from Jeff Bezos' phone was personal messages and photos and stuff, which it doesn't specify, but to me sounds like everything was taken out of the WhatsApp app itself. It wasn't pulling stuff off of his phone elsewhere.
Right, so WhatsApp is messages and it has photo access. And, I mean, it even has its own photo database as well.
Right, yeah. So I don't understand at any point where they're blaming Apple, where their app allows, or their app sent a message with malware in it, and then as a result, their app sent a bunch of data. And yeah, so it's funny, and it does sound like a joke reading it.
Yeah, especially that quote about what they call the operated on the phone itself.
Yeah.
Is he trying to say it's the operating system, or is operate a word for the malware or the person doing the hack?
My understanding was that he was trying to imply it was the fault of the operating system, which is maybe me being influenced by the title of the article in itself. But I've never heard that word used in any other way, although I'm not really in the cybersecurity field. So
yeah. My first reaction when I read it was, these are words coming from the cybersecurity field, and I don't have the knowledge to understand this sentence. But as I read further, I started swaying back to, this sentence makes no sense.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's the president of Global Affairs and Communications. He's not an engineer or their lead cybersecurity guy or anything. So it sounded like more of he's just trying to kind of cover for Facebook.
Even my dad, who's a botanist, knows what an operating system is. This guy works for Facebook.
So, yeah, I can't imagine. And then this isn't the first time. Like, WhatsApp is notorious for being vulnerable to messages infected with malware.
That's right. That's the other thing. Like, it's already happened in WhatsApp.
Right. Yeah, this isn't a new thing. So I don't understand the stance here, or how Facebook can think people are gonna buy into this and believe them over. Apple doesn't have to say anything. They have a strong enough case on their own.
Yeah. Just point to this article or any of these quotes.
Right.
Well, I'm James VDM on Reddit on Twitter.
And I'm Jellywoot on Reddit and Twitter.
And that's the show.
All right.
I'm just looking at this Kickstarter someone has made. Like this camera that looks like it's from the 1920s, except it takes modern instant film.
Oh. What's it called?
It's called the Jolly Look Auto.
Jolly Look Auto. Oh, it looks like a really vintage camera.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, and they only want $90. Oh, wait. Oh, no, a $90 pledge gets you $40 off the retail price. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to read into it. Okay. But yeah, it looks pretty cool, doesn't it?
It does. That looks like a fun way for people to experiment with older photo taking without having to deal with trying to use, I don't know, this will be like a 100-year-old camera.
Yeah. You even hand crank to get the film out of the camera.
Yeah.
Classic.
Oh, it's got a flash built in, though. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. I think you need to have a flash with Instax film because it's not very sensitive to light.
Ah, okay. You should have one of those, I don't know what the photography term is, but the tray of gunpowder that would like flash in the old timey days.
Yeah. The flash
just have
bulbs.
that like a little bulb on the end of it. Yeah.
Yeah, the single use as well. One flash.
Yeah,
you got one photo, then you've got to buy a whole new thing.
If you want an authentic experience, that's what you have to do.
That's it.
It's been a long time since I've backed anything on Kickstarter or Indiegogo or anything else.
Me too. My last thing I backed, it was a smart water bottle, so it would Bluetooth to your phone. It would measure how much water was in the bottle, give you the temperature, and like track your drinking habits, but it didn't live up to any of those promises, and it died within, I think, 3 weeks of getting it. And we bought 2 as well, and both died within a month.
Oh, no. I think the last thing I actually backed on Kickstarter was the Leap motion controller. Okay.
Yeah, I've got vague memories of that.
It actually ended up being a real product and a really good product that's still used and has modern applications. So it was pretty cool at the time, and this was announced in 2012, it looks like, where it had individual finger tracking, and you could use it to interact with games and applications on your computer. And now people are taking them and strapping them to the front of VR headsets for VR applications.
Wow.
So,
and
I think it took a while. I backed it right when it came out, so 2011, 2012, whatever it was. And then I think it took a few years for me to finally get one in the mail.
And do you still use it?
No. I never bothered to try to get working with VR and see, when I got it, it was cool, but it felt really gimmicky. Like there was a handful of applications that had been designed to work with it, and they were fun to play with for a few minutes, and then it kind of got boring.
Okay.
So I put it in a drawer, and then years later, I find out like, oh, this is actually a big deal. People think these are cool and are using them in VR, and so maybe a little bit ahead of its time.
Yeah, it is very early in the whole VR motion. What would you call it? It's got to be a thing, though, isn't it? It's got to be the future of computing. I think it's very early days.
Oh, yeah. VR, AR, I think. I mean, that seems to be what Apple believes, at least. It's going to be the future.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for a day that you put on AR glasses and interact with everything. And
you'll be like, why did I ever get this laser eye surgery? We have to wear glasses anyway.
At least I'll be able to see if I take my AR glasses off.
All right.